Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Throughout this evening's ceremony, you will be given cues to rise and be seated at the appropriate times. As our distinguished guests are introduced, please hold your applause until all introductions have been made. It is my pleasure to welcome you to today's ceremony for the highly anticipated unveiling of the B-17F Memphis Belle and the associated strategic bombing exhibit. I'm Captain Austin Troya, and I'm your Master of Ceremonies for tonight's event. We begin today's program with the arrival of the official party. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the arrival and remain standing for the posting of the colors by the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base Honor Guard and playing of the national anthem by the Air Force Band of Flight's Spirit of Freedom.
Coat, halt, freeze, and halt. Colors turn, halt.
Please remain standing for the invocation by Chaplain Major Rachel David.
Ladies and gentlemen, I invite you to pray with me. Lord God, we welcome your sovereign presence on this spectacular occasion of the dedication of the B-17F Memphis Belle, and as we welcome her home to the National Museum of our United States Air Force. Almighty God, you were instrumental in the creation of this spectacular aircraft, which equipped and empowered our U.S. Army Air Forces, along with our allies, to be victorious in World War II. Thank you for the work and efforts of those who worked tirelessly on the restoration of this aircraft so that it could be prominently presented for public display. This evening, we not only unveil a significant portion of our military history, but we recognize the designers and maintenance workers who served our nation in a desperate time of war. We especially remember and salute the bomber crew members of the B-17 series for their relentless service and sacrifice, who by your awesome hand led our nation to victory. May their families and friends find comfort in their heroism and the gratitude of a grateful nation. And may all who visit this museum and witness this amazing display of our armed forces and American history be more educated and inspired to military or public service. Now, we humbly ask your blessings upon the remainder of the ceremony, the refreshments, and our shared time together. In your most holy and awesome name, above every name, we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain David. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. We are honored to have many distinguished guests in attendance this evening, far too many to recognize individually. Please know, as we recognize very few, we are most appreciative of the time and effort each one of you has made to attend this event. I would like to begin with a special thank you and welcome to our B-17 bomber crew members and maintainers in the audience this evening. Your heroic efforts were critical to our success in World War II campaign. We would like to honor those individuals in attendance at this time. Please stand or raise your hand to be recognized. At this time, we welcome our other distinguished guests. As a reminder, please hold your applause until all introductions have been made. The United States Air Force Director of Staff, Lieutenant General Jacqueline Van Ovost. Director of the National Museum of the United States Air Force, Lieutenant General Jack Hudson, U.S. Air Force, retired. National Museum of the United States Air Force Curator and Lead Historian for the Memphis Belle exhibit, Mr. Jeff Duford. In addition, representing Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Commander, Air Force Life Cycle Management Center, Lieutenant General Robert McMurray. Deputy Commander, Air Force Materiel Command, Major General Warren Berry. Executive Director, Air Force Materiel Command, Ms. Trish Young. And 88th Air Base Wing Commander, Colonel Bradley McDonald. And wrapped deep within the fiber of the Memphis Belle story is our unwavering friendship with our British allies. Because of that, we are especially pleased to have with us today United Kingdom Royal Air Force Assistant Air Attaché, Mr. Stephen Richards, and British Consul General, Mr. John Saville. Also, a special thank you to the Memphis Belle Memorial Association for their outstanding support of this project, and all those involved in the preservation of the Memphis Belle aircraft during its time on display in Memphis, Tennessee. Representing the Memphis Belle Association, we have with us tonight Mr. Brian Pecan, President of the Board of Directors, Dr. Harry Friedman, Board of Directors, and representing the Governor of the State of Tennessee, Senator Mark Norris of Tennessee. Thank you also to the Air Force Museum Foundation. This event would not have been possible without their support. With us tonight, we have the Chairman of the Air Force Museum Board of Trustees, Colonel Susan Richardson, U.S. Air Force, retired. We would not be here today celebrating this aircraft and the stories surrounding it if mankind had never flown. But as history tells, we did fly. And with Dayton being the birthplace of aviation, we are honored to have the great-grandniece and nephew of Orville and Wilbur Wright here tonight. We welcome Amanda Wright Lane and Stephen Wright. The first flight in 1903 brought with it the birth of an industry which grows ever stronger today. The aircraft we celebrate tonight was built by the Boeing Company, and joining us from the Boeing Company this evening is Mr. Lewis Stewart. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in a round of applause for these Air Force organizations, individuals, and families. Throughout military history, we've been told of the many heroic airmen who flew and maintained these magnificent aircraft. On occasion, a leader would emerge who seemed larger than life and who made a lasting impact on our airmen, our history, and often the tides of war. Two of these iconic leaders are represented by their family members tonight. The families of General Carl Spaatz and General James Doolittle are in the audience this evening. Will the family members present please stand to be recognized? Finally, thank you to all of you for being here and helping both the U.S. Air Force and its National Museum celebrate this very exciting event. At this time, it is my pleasure to invite Lieutenant General Van Novost to the podium.
Thank you, Captain Troika. It's awesome. To our distinguished guests, thank you for your stalwart support of this outstanding museum and all it represents. It's very special to have you here today at this momentous occasion. Everyone here realizes that this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to witness the culmination of thousands of hours of work and be part of this unveiling. This is a tremendous piece of our national history. So on behalf of the Chief of Staff of the Air Force, General David Goldfein, I want to thank the entire staff of the National Museum of the United States Air Force for the restoration of this aircraft, for the design and construction of what you will see is an amazing exhibit, and for the planning and execution of the great events that will occur over the next few days to celebrate. I want to thank our hundreds of museum volunteers for your continued support of this museum. You tell the Air Force story every day, inspiring thousands of visitors with the importance of air and space power to our nation. You make history fresh and relevant. And I want to thank the Air Force Museum Foundation and the contributors, not just for the amazing financial contributions that allow us to display air power every day, but for your leadership. I want to thank Headquarters Air Force Materiel Command for their unwavering support, and to the 88th Air Base Wing here at Wright-Patt for your tremendous support during the exhibit construction. I want to point out especially the electrical and lighting work that your civil engineers did here, and of course for your amazing security forces defenders that ensure our safety every day. And finally, and most importantly, to the great Americans who, in the prime of their lives, built, maintained, and flew our B-17 Flying Fortresses, and all of those who served in World War II. And of course to their families, who provided unwavering support during those critical days apart. You represent the very best in all of us, and it's an honor to celebrate you and your service by unveiling the mighty Memphis Belle. Our nation owes you a debt of gratitude that we can never repay. Thank you. Resurrecting the Memphis Belle, it gives us a fleeting opportunity to acknowledge this critical period in our nation that demanded the utmost from all Americans. Our men and women, the entirety of a nation, mobilized to win. We were all in, and we did anything and everything to succeed in World War II. Think about the scale that our industry partners brought to bear. We built over 300,000 aircraft during the war. We built 95,000 aircraft in 1 year. To scale, We have just over 5,300 aircraft right now in our current inventory. The engine deliveries totaled more than 1 billion horsepower between 1940 and 1945, and the aviation industry leapt from 44th to 1st in our national economy. All of this from an industrial base that essentially didn't exist prior to World War II. Only in America could a piano company convert to building airplane wings in a few months. A tire manufacturer building fuselages and tail surfaces. A pickle plant create airplane skis and floats. And the manufacturer of corsets creating parachutes for our airmen. The B-17 Flying Fortress exhibited this spirit of innovation and industrial might for our nation. Its prototype was built in less than 12 months, and eventually the B-17 became the third most produced bomber that we had. It was primarily employed as the backbone of the mighty 8th Air Force and our daylight strategic bombing campaign throughout Europe. Our Flying Fortress crews would drop 500,000 tons of bombs throughout World War II. Ultimately, over 25,000 Americans would crew the B-17, and that includes 1,000 of our elite women Air Force service pilots. The B-17, she was a game changer, truly altering the course of history. And there is no more B-17 famous than tail number 41244485, the Memphis Belle. Led by Captain Robert K. Morgan, the Memphis Belle landed at Bassenburg, England on October 14, 1942. She flew combat 3 weeks later. Captain Morgan could not have found a more fitting description of his experience when he called it 25 trips to hell and back. In fact, tomorrow we will celebrate the 75th anniversary of the crew's 25th combat mission, their ticket home. The Memphis Belle and her crew served during the war's most crucial months. They blasted the Focke-Wulf plant at Bremen and the locks at St. Nazaire. They flew flak over Wilhelmshaven, over railroad yards at Rouen, and the submarine pens at Lorient. Through it all, this aircraft and her crew exemplified strength and the spirit of our nation. It set a standard for excellence and service that our airmen look up to every day. And as we celebrate the Memphis Belle, take a moment to reflect on what she means to our nation. Every generation is called to sustain the freedom and liberty that we cherish today. The men and women who built, maintained, and flew the Memphis Belle stepped up to the task when our nation called, despite the odds. This B-17, now proudly restored, represents those who came before us in service to our nation. Those who sprinted forward with courage, with a proud determination and a spirit of innovation that our airmen want to emulate today. We're a better Air Force, a better nation, and a better world because they answered the call. On June 30th, 1943, the beginning of the end of the Axis war machine, the Army Chief of Staff at the time, General George C. Marshall, submitted his second of 3 reports to the Secretary of War. He said, "The outstanding feature to date of America's war effort has been the manner in which our air forces have carried the war in its most devastating form to the enemy." This demonstration of strategic bombing played an essential part in the creation of a separate United States Air Force in 1947. General Marshall's thoughts on the importance of air power still resonate today. We have returned to great power competition in a global security environment that has not been this dangerous in decades. So it's fitting that we're gathered here today, preparing to unveil its aircraft and all she means to us. A nation all in, innovative airmen and industry partners delivering for our future, underpinned by the ideals of liberty, service, sacrifice, and so much more. We look to the Memphis Belle to rediscover the courage and the determination needed to secure America and carry us forward. Let us never forget and forever honor the men and women who built it, brought it into the air in service of our nation. The Memphis Belle, reporting for duty one last time, to tell the air power story and inspire generations to come. Congratulations.
Thank you, General Van Ovost. Next, please welcome Mr. Duford to the podium.
Thank you, Captain Troya. It is incredibly humbling to come up here and talk about the achievements and the sacrifices of the Memphis Belle crew and the other heavy bomber crewmen. The Memphis Belle is unique. It is a timeless American icon that represents the tens of thousands of heavy bomber crewmen that served and sacrificed in the fight against Nazi Germany. The strategic bombing campaign that these young airmen conducted played a critical part in ending the war. They broke the back of the German Air Force, which allowed D-Day to happen. And after D-Day, they wrecked German oil production and their transportation system, which left them vulnerable to the land invasions from the east and the west that ultimately won the war. However, they did that at a steep, steep price. The Army Air Forces lost more than 8,000 heavy bombers in combat in the fight against Germany, and more than 30,000 airmen were killed in combat in these bombers. To put that into perspective, that represents half of the combat deaths in the entire history of the U.S. Air Force. So half of the sacrifice in combat in the Air Force's history is represented in the story that's told behind this curtain. Now, just as the Memphis Belle is the representative of the heavy bomber crews, we have Memphis Belle family members here tonight who are representatives of the crewmen who flew in the aircraft and who can't be with us tonight, although I'm sure that they're watching down on us right now. We would like to recognize the Memphis Belle families, and I would ask that you stand as I call your family's name, and I would ask that we hold applause until we complete going through all of the crew members on the Memphis Belle. So first, we would like to recognize the families of the Memphis Belle's combat crew. Would the family of Robert Morgan, aircraft commander, please stand? And we have a special welcome to Linda Morgan. She is the widow of Robert Morgan, the aircraft commander. Could we please have the family of James Verinis please stand? James Verinis was the co-pilot on the Memphis Belle for 5 missions, and then he became the aircraft commander on another B-17. We'd also have a warm welcome for Marie Verinis. This is Captain Verinis' widow. We're so glad you're here. Would the family of Vince Evans, Memphis Belle Bombardier, please stand? And we would also like to have a special recognition of Peggy Evans. It's Vince Evans' sister. She can't be with us tonight, but she is watching right now. Would the family of Chuck Layton please stand? Chuck Layton was the navigator on the Memphis Belle. Would the family of Harold Locke please stand? Harold Locke was the engineer and the top turret gunner, and a lot of people coming from Wisconsin tonight. Would the family of Bob Hansen, Memphis Belle radio operator, please stand? And would the family of Cecil Scott, Memphis Belle ball turret gunner, please stand? We're so glad you're here. Would the family of Bill Winchell, waist gunner on the Memphis Belle, who also shot down an FW-190 from his waist gun position. Would the family of Scott Miller please stand? Scott Miller was the Memphis Belle's lost crew member. He joined the crew late and didn't go on the war bond tour. We're so glad that you're here. And also special recognition to Louise Miller, his widow, who is also watching. She couldn't be here with us tonight. Would the family of John Quinlan please stand? Memphis Belle tail gunner. John Quinlan has a swastika painted on the tail of the Memphis Belle representing an FW-190 that he shot down. And lastly, would the family of Tony Nestal, gunner on the Memphis Belle, please stand? And would all the Memphis Belle combat crew families please stand? We would love to recognize you. There are also many other individuals who have a direct connection to the Memphis Belle story. Again, I would ask that we hold applause until we recognize all of those families. First, will the family of Margaret Polk, the Memphis Belle, Robert Morgan's girlfriend, please stand? And then could we have the family of Joe Jambrone, the Memphis Belle's crew chief. Joe Jambrone not only took wonderful care of the Memphis Belle, he was the one that painted the famous bombs on the side of the aircraft. Would the family of Bus Sowers and Ray Kramer please stand? These are other ground crewmen who laid their hands on the Belle and kept her flying. And then with the family of William Weiler, the visionary and brave director who flew 2 combat missions with the Memphis Belle crew, please stand. Without William Weiler, I don't know that the Memphis Belle would be here today. It was his vision. Also, too, the family of Gene Kern. He was a famous narrator at the time. He narrated the 1944 Memphis Belle movie. And also, too, the family of Colonel Howard Mike Hunt, who ferried the Memphis Belle from depot maintenance in Washington to its duty in Florida as a training aircraft. And then lastly, the family of Colonel Stanley Ray, commander of the 91st Bomb Group, who flew 2 combat missions on the Memphis Belle and was an amazing commander who ended up retiring as a major general in the U.S. Air Force. We're so glad you're here. I would like to close with a thought and with a commitment that we have. We are here to celebrate many, many years of work by many, many people, but our work is not done. We can never forget what these young men did. That challenge that we have is written in stone at the Cambridge American Cemetery, which has interred 4,000 bodies of Americans who didn't come home. It is on the wall of remembrance, which has 5,000 names of missing who never came home. It reads, "The Americans whose names here appear were part of the price that free men for the second time in this century have been forced to pay to defend human liberty and rights. All who shall hereafter live in freedom will be here reminded that to these men and their comrades we owe a debt to be paid in grateful remembrance of their sacrifice and with the high resolve that the cause for which they died shall live eternally." Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Duford. Please welcome Lieutenant General Hudson to the podium.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to your National Museum of the United States Air Force. On behalf of our staff of about 90 and our 580 volunteers, welcome. Special welcome to all the World War II veterans we have, all the family members, of World War II veterans who are here tonight. Many of us have parents, grandparents, aunts, and uncles who served in uniform in World War II, amongst the 16 million who were in uniform at one time or another during World War II. So here at the museum, we have two missions. The first is to tell the Air Force story to the public. And annually, we get almost 1 million visitors here in person and another 2 million or so online every year. The second part of our mission statement is to inspire young people toward our Air Force and toward science, technology, engineering, and math through visiting and through our education programs. So just last Friday alone, we hosted 38 busloads of school kids here. And in those buses were future airmen, either in uniform or in the civil service, and future scientists and engineers who were motivated and inspired by what they saw or what they heard during their museum visit. So tomorrow and Friday, it looks like we'll get 40 to 50, both days, busloads of school kids. So this is one of the big reasons why we are here. So to restore the aircraft and design, develop, produce, and install the exhibits took years, many years of planning, attention to detail, and hard work going back to the 2005 timeframe. The Memphis Belle that you'll see here shortly becomes the B-17F aircraft of record for our United States Air Force. That means that it is identical in terms of external appearance and internal configuration to what the airplane was when it flew its 25th mission, or the crew flew their 25th mission back on the 17th of May of 1943. So what did it take? The team extensively researched to ensure that we had everything right, with external markings, with internal configuration, to reflect what the airplane was on the crew's 25th mission in the Belle. That took all the restoration work that involved everything from treating corrosion to making sure all the equipment was in it and that the paint was exact to the day from 1942 when it was built, and that all the markings were correct on the crew's 25th mission. It took designing for accuracy and conciseness that you will soon see, the storyboards, the artifact cases, and lighting to convey the stories of the Belle and her crew, the combined bomber offensive of World War II, aircrew survival and tactics, the work of the maintainers and the other ground crews who kept the airplanes running and combat capable, the technology of the day, Army Air Force leadership, the threat, and more. Selecting and conserving the appropriate artifacts to put in cases on display. You'll see around 24 of them back there this evening as you go through the exhibitry. Ensuring security and safety, not just for tonight, but through the coming days as we do each and every day for our visitors and staff. Planning and executing all these events on a no-fail basis is one more thing that we had to do, and we do all the time for little events and big events. Working with the public media, local, national, regional, and international, working social media, and keeping our main website up and running. Conducting the education programs that we do, ensuring that all the normal things that we have to do got right with budget, personnel, IT, all the other things that you can think of that it takes to keep an organizational unit running. To our staff, I am so very thankful to all that you do each and every day. Same thing to our volunteers. You do an awesome job. I'm really proud of everything that you do to support our United States Air Force and to support our nation. And you'll see some of the handiwork in just a couple of minutes here. The exhibit space is available thanks to what our Air Force Museum Foundation has done in terms of raising money since 1960. They have paid for 94% of the cost of constructing these facilities here. So thanks to them, it got done. As previously recognized, great support by our 88th Air Base Wing mission partners. The combined teams, all those considered who had anything to do with this, have worked together extremely well. So the Memphis Belle begins another chapter in its life. The aircraft and exhibits take their place in our Air Force's National Museum and help accomplish our ongoing mission statements. And so they will connect the public, young and old, to Air Force history and heritage. And the aircraft and exhibitry serve as connecting tissue between what was valued then, leadership, teamwork, innovation, service, national alliances, and more, to what is valued today, all those very same attributes. So thank you for being here tonight, and enjoy.
Thank you, General Hudson. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, the Memphis Belle. Ladies and gentlemen, let's have one more round of applause for this magnificent aircraft. This concludes this evening's ceremony. However, the World War II Gallery will be open for your enjoyment until 10 p.m. While you are waiting for the opportunity to view the exhibit, food and beverages generously provided by the Air Force Museum Foundation are available at the opposite end of this gallery near the B-29. In addition, the gift shop will remain open throughout the evening, and Pixolve has photographers available to take commemorative photos at the gift shop. Please take time this evening to walk through the gallery and the exhibit. There are museum staff and volunteers on hand throughout the gallery to answer questions. Everyone, please remain standing and join us in singing the Air Force song as the departure of the official party. Once again, we thank everyone for being here today and for your continued support of the National Museum of the U.S. Air Force. Please enjoy the rest of your evening. As a final note, we ask that any family members of the Memphis Belle crew members who are interested in participating in media interviews remain seated, and a public affairs representative will assist you shortly.